We are back at the top of the week to begin to land some markers with some dates that Spirit Team has been talking with us about. And just a real quick check-in. How are y'all doing in the intense energies and the intense heat and the intense things that are going on? I hope y'all are hanging in there. So if you have noticed, as of recent, my Spirit Team has been giving us this date and that date. And I know we're all a little bit on edge as far as what they mean by that, what's the true information that's landing, and I am here with you this morning to give you some of that clarity. Now, to help you understand how I look at information news-wise and how Spirit Team helps me interpret that information, a lot of times I will either be scrolling on TikTok or go to CNN or BBC, or I'll be on some sort of news outlet, or Spirit Team will say, go to this news outlet right now and take a look at XYZ story, and I'll go take a look. What I'm watching for as an intuit, as a working psychic, what I am watching for the news that has energy in it, that has that energetic symbolism in it, that seems to come through and radiate more than the other stories. Does that happen all the time? No. Are there important stories out there to be paying attention to that do not have that energy imprint? Yes. But by and large, as I'm combing through news and watching it, I'm doing that psychic reporting, that metaphysical reporting of watching for the stories or the news that has that bump up of energy that really just kind of comes through the camera and zings me a little bit. And what I have found over a period of time, and this has been going on for years, that this is not just now in the last year, this has been going on for years. What I have found is that when those stories kind of come up and zing me a little bit, and I know, oop, that's something I need to pay attention to, kind of file away, more often than not, it turns out to be something or a turning point or a cautionary tale or something we really need to be paying attention to long term. So a lot of the times, that's how I watch my news. And as of recent, like within the last month, the ante has gone up. Like I have felt this sense from spirit world of be paying a little bit of attention, reading between the lines, looking at that energy. And I would say the last handful of weeks, especially the month, there's been just like this right in front of my face. So we're going to talk about those as well. We're going to talk about the dates Spirit Team has been landing, the news connected to it, and some of those other cautionary tales that we need to be paying attention to. And we're calling this metaphysical journalistic reporting. So the first one out of the gate is that biggie that Spirit Team dropped about July 7th. And they said, what did they say? They said, July 7th, there's going to be a major cracking point, right? Well, I'm like a lot of you. I was in there on July 7th, look at the headlines, what's going on. I didn't see a freaking thing. I was like, I really had those moments of like, Jesus, Spirit Team, you're really crying wolf at this point. And so I let it go. I let it slide. There were a couple people that grumbled at me, but I'm like, I work in those longer term cycles, longer term frameworks of things. Like I think you guys are beginning to see that, especially with some of the information that I dropped last fall that is beginning to come up now. So even though I couldn't find any evidence on July 7th, I'm like, I don't think it's all fully landed yet. And then as of this morning, July 14th, and July 14th, this is another big day, and I'm going to be talking about today as well. As of today, I went in, Spirit Team had me go in, I went in to look at the CNN news, and like, bam, reverberating right there on the front page, there was an image of Donald Trump and MAGA being disgruntled and fracturing even more because of the Epstein files. When I saw this story went woo. And the thing I can tell you is if DT's power cracks and implodes, that's pretty much the beginning of the end. And I think we're seeing that more and more and more. And for some reason, Spirit Team is indicating that the whole Epstein thing is an even further fracture that tips it over the edge. Now, I was very curious. I was like, well, when did all this scuttlebutt really hit the news cycle? And so I went in and looked this morning. When did this thing hit the news cycle? It hit the news cycle last week on Monday, July 7th, when Pam Bondi came out and said, there's no client list. We're refuting that there's no client list, and we've released what we've needed to release. You guys have all the information, and the internet went whew. And as of this morning, CNN is reporting on the further cracking of the MAGA base. So to me, this is Spirit World's way of indicating where major cracking points are at. Maybe it's not completely obvious to us at first, but as things begin to unfold, they are spot on with their timing. They are not wrong with their timing when they tell us stuff. And maybe it's not what we want it to see, or maybe it's not what we interpret that it's going to be, but it is something. And the feeling that I get looking at that MAGA headline is, it seems like it's not much. It seems like it's just another thing, another scuttlebutt thing. But when I looked at that news and the energy coming through it, I was like, that's a lot larger than we know. Now, here's the other thing. If you recall, in my energy forecast that I released a couple days early because I wanted you guys to have the information about this weekend and especially today, there was an indication from Spirit World that July 14th, 2025, that is a seeming anomalous date on the calendar. They have indicated to me that today is like the tipping point day, And here's some of the information that I wanted to give to you. As we gradually moved into July 14th, 2025, I began to get, anomalous energy, anomalous information on the airwaves from Spirit World. And there wasn't any real specific wording used, but there was a feeling of tipping point. There's a feeling of you've hit the threshold, you're at the tipping point. It doesn't look like much, but feel into the energies. And again, it was anomalous, very subtle, not connected to anything. And especially yesterday, Sunday, I had that feeling of we've cleared through something big. We've cleared through something big, and it's not necessarily overt. It's very subtle. It's hanging in the background, but if you tune in, you can feel it. You can feel it. And then as of this morning, the early on this morning, and remember, I'm Pacific Daylight Time, so check your time zone on this. But early this morning, I got up and it's energy's still heavy, energy's still intense, feeling like that trudge uphill, are we ever going to make it? Are we ever going to make it? And then somewhere around mid-morning, it broke. And it wasn't just a regular energy break, coming down off of a Schumann's ride or a solar winds ride, which we are doing, or, coming through a major astrology break. It wasn't a feeling like that. It was a feeling of it's over. It's over. And I started walking for a full hour. I started walking around the house just breathing. I could breathe again in a way I haven't been able to breathe for months. It's my body is catching the first whips of the tipping point. So I am here for you on a Monday saying, doesn't look like much, not that much evidence, but Spirit World is going, look at that. House cleaning indicated from that big, beautiful bill. Minotaur needs to get cleared out. Yeah, and then the Epstein file thing, crack, 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 tip, 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 and 14th, big, powerful, subtle day. You are not going to see this in the headlines. You're not going to see this in the headlines anywhere, but it is this very powerful, subtle energy that is beginning to, there's a little bit more of a shift there. So I would be very curious. These are my experiences. This is what I'm picking up on, but I would be very curious. What are you picking up on? What are you feeling? Let's put our landscape information together so we can kind of see what's going on with people from all different parts of the country so we can put the puzzle pieces together on this. Okay, so This is the major information that I've got for you, but it's not all the information. So if you want to stick around, I've got a little bit more for you here. Now, you know what I said a little while earlier where like I scan the news and pick up on the news in kind of a different, subtle, psychic, intuitive way, and sometimes Spirit Team has me go in and they're like, pay attention to that, look at that, that's important. So I have been collecting some fairly high energy profile hits on news stories, and I want to share with you what those are, and I want to get your feedback on what you've been picking up with them as well. So here we go. Of course, the big beautiful bill and the whole Minotaur thing, big cautionary tale. And if you remember, that's all connected back into that longer looping cycle of what Spirit Team was trying to tell us last fall when the presidential certification went through, and all they kept telling us was house cleaning, house cleaning, house cleaning. And now they've landed this bill and there's all sorts of squirrely stuff going on with it. And there's a feeling of what they've done, especially with that and the Minotaur, that they are in the process of signing their own energetic, career-wise death warrants for themselves. And there's a very strong feeling that whatever it is that they're doing with it, they're setting up their own house cleaning. So we need to keep an eye on that. This next one is very sensitive and it's very painful, but I got to put it out there at the top, and I will try and be very sensitive about this. This is the flooding that's happening in Texas, the flooding that's happened in Texas. And we're not going to go into the gory details on the ins and outs of this because this might be too sensitive and too painful for some folks, and I want to respect that. I want to respect that there's a death, there's a recovery process, there's grieving, and that is very important to respect and honor. However, I do need to give the metaphysical report that when this river flooded and all the chaos and the damage and the loss of life began to roll through, Spirit Team very pointedly, when I went in and looked at that, and actually that was one of the stories, they're like, we need you to go in and look at something specific, and it was the very front end of the reporting of the flooding in Texas. And when I went in and looked at it, all Spirit Team said to me was biblical. Like, what has happened with that flooding, what is happening with that flooding is very connected with some biblical things, and it's very connected with an awakening, and it's very connected with cautionary tale. Now, the other thing that they do want me to point out is that there were some people involved in that flooding whose intuitive sense was on, their spidey sense was on. There's been some stories come out about some people, specifically an African-American woman and her family, where she was like, weather, I see the river, river rising over there, rain, weather. And all of a sudden she had this sense of like, we got to get out of here. And so she turned to her husband. She's like, river's rising. We got to get out of here. And kudos to her husband. He's like on it, ready to go. And they packed up immediately, got out. And as they were leaving, they I guess they were in a campground or campsite, and they checked out with the hosts and told them what they saw, what they were doing. And the hosts there were like, really? Oh, it's going to be okay. And this woman and her husband were like, yeah, sorry, we're gone. And they ended up saving their lives by doing that. And so this is me standing in front of you saying, from here on out, if you weren't doing it before, from here on out, we need to have these situational awarenesses going on, because our weather service and the communication for it is not what it used to be. Resources for recovery are not what they used to be. So much of our infrastructure is going through change. And so you, on a daily, weekly basis, just kind of having that tune in, like I do that with my Spirit Team. I'm like, okay, where are we at with volcanoes and wind and fire and research? Like, I'm regularly tuning in with my Spirit Team, and by and large, they come back and they're like, you're okay, you're fine, you're in your pocket, we'll let you know if you need to. But you having your awareness up and paying attention is worth its weight in gold. You could very well save your life just by doing that. And so the whole thing about the Texas flooding, I'm just going to make a very gentle nod to being aware is really, really important from here on out. You know, if it was important before, that's one of the primary messages Spirit World wants to get through, but they're also saying this flood connected with the people, connected with what happens, it's going to have far-reaching effects for many, many, many years. And so they just want to put that on our radar. And then this last one, I also want to be very sensitive about how I deliver this information. But again, these stories just popped out at me and I'm like, oh my God, you know, you kind of can't miss them because they're like right there. If you have noticed, there have been 2 billionaire families that have been taken out, one by a natural event and the other by airplane. The first one was a family that was killed when their boat capsized in that freak storm that happened on Lake Tahoe. And when I saw that come through, I was like cautionary tale is going on for billionaires right now. When I saw that happen, I was like, But then it really came home to roost when within this same month, there's been an entire family, a billionaire family, killed through an airplane accident. And so there's this feeling in the air of like, you know, if we go through these stories, that it seems to me very much that Mother Nature is weighing in on things, giving us like a choice point, letting us know which direction she is headed and what she is supporting and what she is not supporting. And a lot of it is in the telltales of the headlines that we are seeing. And so this is me getting in front of you going, there is a whole other way to filter through the news in a way that gives us information, intuitive information, and psychic information on what we really need to be paying attention to and what we can let go of. And I just want to both drop that to you both as the information of the news cycle, some of the things I've been seeing, and I would love to hear your comments on that, but then also just as a tool, as a skill, how we go through our headlines and how we absorb that information. That may be a shift for you in how you read your headlines. That's what I've got for you for now. Make sure you keep walking forward to meet those miracles along the way, and I will see you in my next video.